You know, sometimes the most important lessons about money don't come from loud voices, flashy lifestyles, or viral success stories. They come from quiet rooms, patient minds, and people who spent a lifetime thinking instead of reacting. That's exactly where the story of Benjamin Graham begins. Not with excitement, not with luxury, but with discipline, caution, and a deep respect for uncertainty. Benjamin Graham was born in 1894, long before smartphones, before social media, before markets moved on rumors and tweets. He lived through economic booms, devastating crashes, world wars, and financial chaos. He didn't just study markets, he survived them. And what makes his ideas so powerful is not that they made people rich quickly, but that they helped people avoid ruin when everything else fell apart. Early in his career, Graham experienced success fast, too fast. He was brilliant, confident, and mathematically gifted. Money came easily, and with that came the dangerous belief that intelligence alone was enough. Then came the crash. The Great Depression wiped out fortunes, including much of his own. That moment changed him forever. Instead of becoming bitter or reckless, he became cautious, thoughtful, almost conservative in the deepest sense of the word. He learned that markets don't reward excitement, they reward patience. One of Graham's most important ideas was simple but uncomfortable. The market is not always rational. Prices go up not because businesses improve, but because people get greedy. Prices collapse not because companies disappear overnight, but because fear spreads faster than logic. Most investors don't fail because they lack intelligence. They fail because they lack emotional control. They panic when they should wait. They chase when they should think. Graham believed that investing was not about predicting the future. It was about protecting yourself from being wrong. That single idea separated intelligent investing from speculation. While others tried to guess what would happen next, Graham focused on what could go wrong and how to survive it. He introduced the concept of margin of safety, a phrase that sounds boring but saves lives financially. The idea is simple: never invest with perfection as your requirement. Always leave room for error. Buy assets at prices so reasonable that even if things go slightly wrong, you are still protected. This wasn't about pessimism. It was about humility, understanding that no one, no matter how smart, sees the future clearly. Graham didn't trust excitement. In fact, he feared it. He watched intelligent people lose everything because they believed too strongly in their own predictions. He often said that the investor's biggest enemy is not the market, it's themselves. Fear and greed destroy more wealth than bad information ever could. One of the most powerful metaphors Graham ever used was the idea of Mr. Market. He described the market as an emotional business partner who shows up every day offering to buy or sell assets at wildly different prices. Some days Mr. Market is euphoric and overconfident. Other days he's depressed and desperate. Graham's advice was simple: you don't have to listen to him every day. You are free to ignore him until his emotions create an opportunity. This idea alone changes how you see investing. Instead of being controlled by price movements, you become a judge of value. Instead of reacting, you evaluate. Instead of asking, "What will this stock do tomorrow?" you ask, "What is this business truly worth over time?" Graham believed that investing should feel boring. If it feels thrilling, something is probably wrong. Real wealth, in his view, was built quietly, slowly, without applause. He distrusted shortcuts and laughed at promises of easy money. History had taught him that markets punish impatience relentlessly. Another overlooked lesson from Graham's life is how deeply personal finance really is. He understood that money decisions are emotional decisions. People don't just invest with numbers, they invest with hope, fear, pride, and regret. That's why two people can see the same information and make completely different choices. One panics, the other waits. He often warned that intelligence is not enough. Discipline matters more. Temperament matters more. The ability to do nothing, to wait while others rush, is a rare skill. And yet that skill often determines who succeeds and who fails over decades. Graham also believed that you should never confuse activity with progress. Buying and selling constantly feels productive, but it often destroys value through fees, taxes, and bad timing. He preferred thoughtful decisions made rarely, supported by strong reasoning and patience. Perhaps the most misunderstood part of Graham's philosophy is that it wasn't about maximizing gains, it was about minimizing regret. He knew that avoiding catastrophic loss was more important than chasing extraordinary returns. Because once you lose deeply, time becomes your enemy. Recovery takes years, sometimes a lifetime. His influence extended far beyond his own lifetime. Students who absorbed his philosophy went on to become legends. But what mattered most was not fame, it was survival. Graham taught people how to stay in the game long enough for compounding to work its quiet magic. And here's the twist most people miss. Graham wasn't trying to beat the market every year. He was trying to build a system that worked across a lifetime, a system that could withstand crashes, mistakes, emotions, and uncertainty. A system that allowed ordinary people to behave rationally in an irrational world. As the years passed, Graham became less concerned with clever strategies and more focused on character. He believed that successful investing reflected a person's inner discipline, how they handled boredom, how they handled losses, how they handled temptation. Money, in the end, revealed who you were under pressure. He lived modestly. He avoided excess. He respected simplicity, not because he lacked ambition, but because he understood the cost of distraction. Wealth was a tool, not an identity, and financial independence to him meant freedom from fear, not freedom to impress. By the time he reached the later years of his life, Graham had seen every market emotion repeat itself again and again. The names changed, the technologies changed, but human behavior stayed exactly the same. That's why his ideas remain relevant today. Markets evolve. Psychology does not. If there is one quiet truth Graham leaves behind, it is this. The goal of investing is not to be right all the time. The goal is to survive long enough to let time work for you, to protect your capital, to control yourself, and to remain patient when others cannot. And that mindset, calm, disciplined, humble, is where real wealth begins. What made Benjamin Graham truly different was not that he avoided mistakes. He made plenty. What separated him from most investors was how he designed his thinking to survive mistakes. He accepted early on that uncertainty was permanent. Markets would always surprise people. Economic forecasts would always fail. Even the smartest analysis could still be wrong. Instead of fighting that reality, he built his philosophy around it. Graham believed that the future was unknowable, but risk was manageable. That distinction matters more than most people realize. You don't need to predict what will happen next year to invest successfully. You need to avoid positions that can destroy you if you're wrong. That's why he focused obsessively on downside protection. Not upside dreams, not exciting stories, just survival first. He warned investors about confusing intelligence with wisdom. Intelligence helps you analyze numbers. Wisdom helps you know when not to act. Many people, especially educated professionals, fall into this trap. They believe their knowledge entitles them to certainty. Graham saw this arrogance wipe out fortunes repeatedly. He often said that investing is not a test of IQ once you reach a certain level. It's a test of emotional stability. One of his most uncomfortable teachings was that doing nothing is often the smartest decision. In a world that rewards action and confidence, this idea feels almost offensive. People want to feel in control. They want to feel busy, But Graham understood that overactivity is usually a sign of anxiety, not skill. Markets reward patience far more consistently than effort. He also warned against the seductive nature of narratives. Humans love stories. A compelling story can override facts, logic, and caution. Graham watched investors fall in love with exciting industries, revolutionary technologies, and charismatic leaders, only to ignore basic valuation. He believed that stories should never replace arithmetic. If the numbers didn't justify the price, the story didn't matter. Another critical insight from Graham's life was his understanding of cycles. He saw optimism turn into euphoria, and euphoria turn into panic, again and again. What shocked him was not that cycles existed, but that people never learned from them. Each generation believed that this time is different. Graham knew that phrase was one of the most dangerous in finance. He urged investors to prepare emotionally for market declines before they happened, not intellectually, emotionally. Because once fear takes over, logic disappears. He believed that if you couldn't sleep at night because of your investments, you were taking too much risk. Peace of mind mattered more than maximum returns. Graham's approach to diversification was also deeply misunderstood. He didn't diversify because he lacked conviction. He diversified because he respected uncertainty. He knew that even well-researched investments could fail for reasons beyond analysis. Diversification was not a weakness. It was humility expressed mathematically. He also rejected the idea that investing should be exciting. In fact, he believed excitement was a warning sign. If an investment made your heart race, it probably wasn't an investment, it was speculation. Real investing, according to Graham, should feel almost dull, predictable, unsensational, and that boredom was a feature, not a flaw. As he aged, Graham became increasingly focused on the psychological cost of money. He observed that people often sacrificed peace, relationships, and integrity in pursuit of higher returns. He questioned whether those trade-offs were ever worth it. Money, he believed, should serve life, not consume it. He also spoke honestly about regret. He admitted that some of his biggest mistakes came not from ignorance, but from ignoring his own principles. Moments of impatience, moments of ego, moments where he thought he was smarter than the market. Those experiences humbled him and reinforced his belief that discipline matters more than brilliance. One of the quiet tragedies Graham observed was how people measured success. They compared themselves constantly. Neighbors, colleagues, headlines. This comparison pushed them into unnecessary risks. Graham warned that envy is one of the most expensive emotions in investing. It convinces people to abandon their plan at exactly the wrong time. He urged investors to define success internally, not socially. If your strategy meets your goals, provides security, and allows you to sleep well at night, then it is successful, regardless of what others are doing. This mindset freed people from the endless race of comparison. Graham also emphasized the importance of time horizon. Short-term thinking amplifies noise and emotion. Long-term thinking reveals value. He believed that time was the investor's greatest ally, but only if they didn't sabotage it through impatience. Compounding works quietly, but it demands trust and endurance. Perhaps one of his most human insights was that fear never disappears. It only changes shape. Young investors fear missing out. Older investors fear losing what they've built. Graham understood both. His philosophy wasn't about eliminating fear. It was about preventing fear from controlling decisions. He encouraged investors to write down their reasoning before making decisions, not to impress others, but to protect themselves from emotional revision. When markets moved against them, they could revisit their original logic instead of rewriting history. This practice anchored behavior to reasoning, not mood. Graham also believed that financial independence was not about luxury. It was about autonomy, the ability to say no, the ability to wait, the ability to live without constant financial anxiety. He viewed money as insulation against fear, not a scoreboard of success. In his later years, Graham became more philosophical. He reflected on how little markets had changed at their core. Technology accelerated speed. Media amplified emotion. But human behavior remained predictable. Fear and greed still dominated. That realization reinforced his belief that timeless principles mattered more than clever tactics. He never claimed his method was easy. In fact, he acknowledged that it was emotionally difficult. It required resisting crowds. It required enduring periods of underperformance. It required trusting logic over instinct. But he believed that difficulty was the price of durability. And here is where his story becomes deeply personal. Graham understood that investing mirrors character. How you handle money reflects how you handle uncertainty, temptation, and delayed gratification. Investing success was not separate from life discipline. It was an extension of it. He believed that the ultimate goal was not to die rich, but to live well, to avoid unnecessary stress, to maintain dignity through market chaos, to remain calm while others panicked, to know that no matter what the market did tomorrow, you would be okay. That quiet confidence was Graham's real legacy. Not a formula, not a textbook, but a way of thinking that protected people from their worst instincts. A philosophy built not on optimism but on resilience. And as markets continue to change, as new trends emerge, as noise grows louder, the calm logic of Benjamin Graham remains a reminder that the most powerful edge in investing is not speed, information, or prediction. It is self-control, it is patience, it is humility, and most of all, it is the willingness to wait when others cannot. And this is where everything Benjamin Graham stood for quietly comes together, not as a strategy, not as a formula, but as a philosophy for living with money instead of being ruled by it. By the end of his life, Graham was no longer trying to convince people how to beat the market. He was trying to show them how not to lose themselves in it. He understood something that most people discover too late. Money amplifies who you already are. If you are disciplined, it rewards you. If you are impatient, it exposes you. If you are fearful, it controls you. And if you are greedy, it eventually humbles you. Markets don't change people. They reveal them. Graham often reflected on how easily people confuse motion with progress. Prices move every second, headlines change every hour, opinions shift every day. But real progress in wealth happens slowly, almost invisibly. It happens while nothing exciting seems to be happening at all. That's why most people miss it. They're too busy watching the noise. He believed that the investor's greatest advantage was the ability to step back, to zoom out, to think in decades while others thought in days. That long view stripped away fear. It softened volatility. It turned temporary losses into background noise instead of personal crises. One of the hardest truths Graham taught was that markets do not care about your needs. They do not know when you plan to retire. They do not know when you need money. They do not respond to hope or desperation. That's why he urged people to build financial lives that didn't depend on perfect timing. Because perfect timing doesn't exist. He warned repeatedly about the danger of overconfidence during good times. Prosperity makes people careless. Rising markets convince people that risk has disappeared. Graham knew this was an illusion. Risk doesn't vanish, it hides. And it usually reveals itself when people are least prepared. In private conversations, Graham would often say that the most important word in investing is enough. Knowing when you have enough changes everything. It reduces fear. It eliminates reckless chasing. It frees you from endless comparison. Without a sense of enough, no amount of money ever feels safe. He also believed deeply in personal responsibility. Not blame, but ownership. He rejected the idea that markets do things to people. People choose how they respond. They choose whether to panic or pause, whether to follow crowds or think independently, whether to speculate or invest. This sense of responsibility extended beyond money. Graham saw investing as a reflection of maturity. Mature investors accepted discomfort. They accepted uncertainty. They accepted that they would sometimes look wrong before being proven right. Immature investors demanded constant reassurance. One of his most quietly radical ideas was that wealth should reduce stress, not increase it. If your financial life constantly causes anxiety, something is broken. Either your expectations are unrealistic or your risk tolerance is misunderstood. Graham believed that peace of mind was a legitimate investment goal. As he aged, Graham became more detached from short-term results and more focused on enduring principles. He watched markets crash and recover over and over. He watched new generations repeat old mistakes with new technology, and he remained calm through it all. That calm was not indifference. It was earned confidence, confidence rooted in preparation, not prediction. Confidence built on the knowledge that he had accounted for uncertainty instead of denying it. Perhaps the most powerful part of Graham's legacy is how accessible it is. His philosophy was never meant for insiders or elites. It was designed for ordinary people who wanted to protect their savings and live with dignity. It required no secret information, no leverage, no speed, just patience, discipline, and self-awareness. He believed that anyone willing to think independently could invest intelligently, but he also warned that independence came at a cost. You would sometimes feel lonely. You would sometimes feel foolish. You would sometimes be early or late. But over time, that independence protected you from the worst collective mistakes. Near the end of his life, Graham wrote that the real purpose of investing was to support a full life, not replace one. Money was never meant to be the central focus of existence. It was meant to remove obstacles, reduce fear, and create space for what truly mattered. And this is the quiet twist in his story. For a man who devoted his life to markets, Graham's ultimate lesson had very little to do with money. It had everything to do with behavior, with restraint, with humility, with knowing yourself. He showed that the most dangerous risks are not found on balance sheets, but in the human mind. That the biggest losses don't come from bad markets, but from bad decisions made under emotional pressure. And that the greatest edge an investor can ever have is not intelligence, but temperament. If there is one idea that deserves to outlive every trend, every crash, every bubble, it is this. You don't need to be brilliant to build wealth. You need to be patient. You need to be disciplined. You need to be willing to wait when others rush and stay calm when others panic. Benjamin Graham lived through chaos and came out with clarity. Not optimism, not pessimism, but realism. A clear-eyed understanding of how markets work and how humans behave inside them. And perhaps that is why his ideas still matter today. Because markets will always change, technology will always evolve, but fear and greed will always feel the same. And as long as that remains true, the quiet wisdom of Benjamin Graham will continue to protect those willing to listen.